in a world where these seem to be replaced by these everywhere you turn, and people are desperate to charge everything, this little device tells you how much you are charging, what wattage you're getting out of any of these cables by plugging it in and putting it through the process. It will give you a number to tell you, is that cable charging at 5 watts, 20 watts, or 65 watts, or 100 watts. So let's check it out. So a few weeks ago I bought this USB-C meter tester, and I've been playing with it and testing various parts of my cables to see if they're performing the way that they ought to. And so we're going to run through a few of these and see which cables are up to par. Alright, so here we're testing a cable which was bad. And you can see when I moved it there, it came on. But when I move it again, the tester goes off because it's not getting any power. It's short. This is the one I was trying to charge my computer with, but my computer kept going on and off. When I'm holding it, the power gets up to the same place as the good cable, but it's obviously shorting out. So here we go. So for starters, this one is plugged into my 67 watt MacBook adapter, and it's actually a replacement cable, and it's my second replacement cable because my first original one got broken. I replaced it with an Anchor cable, and I'm going to show you that one in just a minute. Now what I've noticed with this is when I plug it in, the wattage actually starts lower and then increases in time. So it starts out a little bit slow and then builds. And I don't know if that's a reflection of the current that's flowing, or if it's just as the tester gets up to speed with what's flowing through it. Now it only works when it's plugged in on both ends so that the flow is coming through it. And I also question its build because it feels pretty cheap compared to a good cable, but we'll see how it does with a few different things here. And I think it does reflect accurate reading of the amount of power that's flowing through. So to tell you this story real quick, I did have an Anchor cable that was not performing. It was basically shorting out and trying to use it with my MacBook. And so Anchor replaced it, and I was very pleased with their customer service just to do that, to stand behind their product. I have a whole bunch of Anchor things, and I really think that what they create, both in terms of cables and in terms of other plug-in and lots of different devices, are good quality. So we're getting up to about 38 watts here. So we'll test a different cable here. So the second cable we're going to test is this charger that I use sometimes, and it's a 100 watt charger by Ugreen, and it has its own cable, and it seems like a good build quality in terms of a cable. So I'm going to plug it in and see what we're getting. So here we are with the Ugreen Anchor, the Ugreen bank sending power to my MacBook, and again we're getting up to like about the same range in terms of wattage going in. Give it just a second, see if it goes any higher, but I think it's probably peaked here at about 38. So I've done another video on the Ugreen bank, and it's how quickly it will charge both my phone and my laptop is really the best charger that I have, as long as I can keep it away from my teenagers. I don't know if you have teenagers, but they will rob you blind just in terms of anything that will charge their phone. It's like a desperation to keep their phones charged, and their phones are always at like 6%. So I don't get it. So I tested overall about 10 different cables. I'm just going to summarize here because I couldn't find a lot of scientific evidence for why one did better than the other, and I couldn't really even tell by looking at them. You know, some did seem a little bit better quality, but there's no number on them. There's nothing that tells you how fast they'll charge, and that's the problem with the whole thing. We get all these cables and we don't know what they do. So the more I looked into this, one of the things that really spurred my curiosity was Adam Savage's show doing this and covering it from a very high-tech standpoint. And just a CT image here of inside the Apple Thunderbolt 4 $130 cable if you're interested in having the top-of-the-line cable. But made me want to test my cables and see what they were actually doing performance-wise. Now, I don't know how many USB cables we have around our house, but it really gets on my nerves that we have cables which don't work. And so that's part of what we're doing here today, is looking into these. Okay, here we're looking at the inside of the anchor cable, which had gone bad. And I'm not going to really be able to discover where the short is here, but I'm just curious. This is the part the short was in. In general, I feel like the braided cables are good, but I think that has also become a marketing feature that many have tried to convince you that you're buying a good cable. So it may be a very cheap cable. All right, so inside, this should be a cable which can carry both power and data, have all the components needed to do that. Separate the sheathing on each one of these from their interior parts. You can see the individual wires here. The thickest, heaviest is the red. I would imagine that that is one of the actual electric carriers. I'm just guessing, but that would seem to be how this would work. This one does not have the wires that the anchor cable did, and so it may not be able to carry the same amount of data or data at all. It has a red and a black, kind of like a regular electric cable does. So I'm going to fast forward here through the shop part of this video. I did cut open two of these cables to look further inside, and the one big thing that stuck out to me was that the anchor cable, which seemed to be better built, was harder to cut into. It had more housing around the wires, and in addition to having more wires inside, it was just seemed to be a better product in general. So there you saw where the pins come in, and that's the main thing, is you're looking to keep all these little wires from shorting, from getting pulled away from their connections where they're going to connect to the pins. And if any of these get bent or broken off, then you're not going to be able to use the cord for as much power or any power, or get the data through it that you need to get. So this is really what's inside of these. It's a bunch of little wires, and they all connect to a little micro, like a micro motherboard in there. And then you have the pins where they connect and then feed into your computer or device that you're connecting the cable to. So that's just kind of a summary of looking at all these. If you'd like to see the long version of this, shoot me a message and I'll let you look at it. So oddly enough, the conclusion really of a study like this of an amateur, I'm not an expert on USB cables, but is that I can't tell the difference. So I need something to tell me how well a USB cable is working. So maybe a conclusion is that a name brand cable is going to be more reliable, and the heavier the cable. But even the cables that I have and have tested, I can't tell by looking at them which ones are going to be fast in terms of charging speed versus ones that are going to be slow. So a little device like this is going to be helpful to me and maybe to you. So I think I forgot to tell you in there to subscribe, but you can figure that part out. Hey, thanks for watching. I hope that was somewhat interesting and insightful into USB life. So